"You'll never lead," he'd said once, his voice like a door slamming shut on a dream. But the room today hums differently, softer, colder, like air before a thunderstorm. The click of the pen feels heavier than words, and the silence afterward is louder than applause. She doesn't smile. Not yet. The paper lies still between them, the ink spreading slightly where her hand trembled. What secret could break a family twice? Once in betrayal, again in truth. The walls seem to breathe. The old office clock ticks, like a heartbeat that no longer belongs to her. Behind the glass, rain streaks the skyline, blurred and forgiving. She signs, lifts her eyes, and meets the man who built her cage. For the first time, he looks small. Somewhere deep inside, she feels the echo of who she was before she stopped believing. The moment stretches thin, fragile. Then, silence. The kind that changes everything. The building hums with rumors before the truth can find its way down the stairs. Whispers cling to corners, papers shuffle too quickly, and eyes dart toward closed doors. Elena walks the hallway like a survivor of a private war. Every congratulatory smile feels like an accusation. Every glance a question she can't answer. Freedom doesn't feel like air. It feels like cold metal in her chest. Richard's office door, now ajar, stands like a wound left open, bleeding authority into the carpet. Somewhere, a printer jams. Somewhere, laughter dies mid-breath. Change has a sound, and it's quieter than she imagined. Michael waits outside the building, leaning on the hood of his car, the drizzle softening his outline. Their eyes meet through glass and years of unspoken things. He doesn't ask how it feels to win, maybe because he already knows the cost. She hesitates before stepping out, the city's noise rushing in to fill the silence between them. They share a look that remembers every fight, every broken promise, every time she chose ambition over them. The rain hides what their eyes can't. Richard sits alone in his office, stripped of title and silence. The blinds remain half open, light falling across his face like judgment. He touches the empty desk where his power once lived, the cold surface almost mocking. He once believed leadership was about control, but control had always been fear in disguise. On the corner of his desk, the photo of his family stares back, their smiles trapped in time. He exhales, a sound like surrender, and reaches for the phone he knows won't ring. Night falls over the office tower like closure. Elena stands at the exit. The city's hums steady and low, the glass doors reflecting a version of her she doesn't yet recognize. Power feels lonelier than she thought. She looks at her phone. Michael's message unread. A single word glowing. "Dinner?" The pause between decision and action stretches like a breath she can't release. For the first time in years, she doesn't know what comes next. And maybe that's the truest kind of leadership. Morning light spills through Elena's apartment like a quiet intruder. The city hums below, relentless and unaware of how the world can shift overnight. The headlines on her phone carry her name now, a symbol of change or rebellion, depending on who's reading. The toast burns, coffee goes cold, success looks ordinary in daylight. She scrolls past messages from people who never spoke to her before, congratulating her with words dipped in envy. The apartment feels too neat, too still, the silence thick as guilt. She should feel victorious, but all she can think of is the look in Richard's eyes, the brief flicker of understanding when he realized it was already too late. She sets the phone down, presses her palms to her face, and exhales into the emptiness that comes after power is won. Richard's house smells of old whiskey and unopened mail. The silence feels like a punishment he earned. Lydia watches him from across the living room, her eyes sharp with a love that turned brittle over years of compromises. He tells her it was just business, but the lie lands weak between them. She doesn't ask for the details. She's seen the story before, in boardrooms and birthday parties alike. Power was always his first devotion. Now it's gone, and she doesn't know the man sitting in front of her. The clock ticks loud enough to remind them both that something final has ended. When she stands to leave, he almost calls her back, but doesn't. Pride, even broken, has a voice of its own. The office feels heavier without Richard's shadow, yet lighter in ways no one will admit aloud. Maya moves through the space carrying folders, her quiet efficiency now tinted with fear of the unknown. Elena watches from her new office. Larger, brighter, lonelier. Her reflection in the glass carries the same expression she once saw on Richard's face. Exhaustion disguised as control. She calls Daniel in for updates. He stands awkwardly, his politeness like armor. The conversation is professional, but beneath it runs a current neither can ignore. The awareness of power's cost. As he leaves, she catches her own reflection again and wonders if she's already become the man she replaced. Claire had always admired her father's strength until it broke. She visits him without calling first, her footsteps hesitant, unsure of what kind of man she'll find. Richard opens the door slower than she expects, smaller than she remembers. They talk around the real subject at first, the weather, her work, the dog. But when she finally says, "Did you deserve it?" he can't answer. Tears blur her mascara. His silence shatters her memory of the invincible father she once idolized. For the first time, she sees him as human. And it hurts more than betrayal ever could. When she leaves, he sits at the table, whispering her name into a house that's no longer a home. That night, Elena meets Michael at a quiet riverside bar. The lights shimmer across the water, laughter from strangers blending into the low murmur of jazz. They talk like people trying to find the edges of who they used to be. He tells her he's proud, but his voice cracks on the last word. She wants to believe him. Wants to believe that ambition didn't destroy everything soft between them. The air smells of rain and bourbon. Time feels slow here. Here. When his hand brushes hers, she doesn't pull away. The river moves beneath them, dark and constant, carrying everything unspoken away into the night. The boardroom feels colder than it used to. Elena stands before faces that once feared her, now only watching, curious, skeptical, waiting for a crack. The press leak came this morning. Details about Richard's termination, whispers of manipulation, claims of ambition over ethics. She knows who's behind it, but can't prove it. Every voice in the room sounds rehearsed, every question coated with concern and quiet judgment. When she speaks, her voice is steady, but distant, like someone defending a decision they no longer believe in. Her own reflection in the screen behind her looks unfamiliar, powerful but hollow. Leadership, she realizes, isn't about being seen. It's about surviving being watched. Richard watches the interview play on the TV. Elena's calm tone, her precise words, the quiet tremor that only someone who's lost everything can recognize. The media calls her ruthless, visionary, divisive. He almost smiles. The words used to describe him too. There's a strange relief in seeing her take his old place in the storm. Lydia moves about the kitchen behind him, pretending not to listen, though her hands have stopped moving. For the first time, he wonders if this is what redemption feels like. Not forgiveness, but the haunting comfort of being replaced by someone who finally understands what the crown costs. Maya's loyalty begins to fracture under the weight of rumor. She's called into a meeting with the board's internal auditor. Questions about documents, timelines, decisions made behind closed doors. Her pulse hammers as she answers, careful but trembling. She remembers Elena's trust, the late nights, the quiet mentorship. But fear is persuasive. When she leaves the room, she feels watched by something invisible. The way guilt looks before its name. That night, she writes an email she doesn't send, addressed to Elena, filled with everything she can't say aloud. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to." She hits save, not delete. The truth can wait one more day. Michael watches from the sidelines. The evening news, the headlines, the online chaos. He sees her face everywhere, calm and unreadable. They haven't spoken since the river night, though her silence feels heavier than distance. At work, a co-worker jokes about the woman who ate her boss alive, and something in him snaps. He defends her without thinking, then realizes how much of her he still carries. Later, in his car, he stares at his phone, at her name glowing faintly in the dark. He types, "You don't have to fight alone," then deletes it. Some wars, he knows, can't be shared. Late at night, Elena stands in the empty office, the city glowing beneath her like an ocean of light. Her name on the glass door looks strange, permanent, heavy. She replays the day in her head. The board's silence, Maya's downcast eyes, the call from PR about image management. Somewhere between winning and surviving, she lost something unnamed. The air conditioner hums faintly. A single fluorescent light buzzes above. She thinks about Richard, about his warning, about how power always ends the same way. Quietly. Outside, thunder rolls over the skyline. She reaches for the switch, but her reflection lingers longer than the light. Morning headlines burn brighter than the city's light. Elena's photo fills every newsfeed. The words "ethics investigation" scroll beside her name. The company's stock dips, and phones don't stop ringing. The voice on the other end of every call sounds the same. Controlled panic pretending to be professionalism. She answers each one, methodical, cold, as if emotion itself might crack her armor, but her hands tremble under the desk. The very machine she rebuilt is now eating itself, and her reflection in the window looks almost amused, as if she knew this moment was inevitable. Outside, the city roars, indifferent. Inside, she learns what every leader learns too late. Control is just a delay before collapse. Richard steps into the same office building for the first time since that day. His ID no longer works, but the security guard still recognizes him, nods silently, lets him pass. He rides the elevator alone, the hum of cables whispering the past. The top floor smells the same. Sterile. Expensive. Fearful. When the doors open, he pauses, staring at the plaque with Elena's name. It should sting, but it doesn't. Inside, he doesn't see a rival. He sees a reflection of choices, of survival, of a shared sin called ambition. When he turns to leave, he feels light. Maybe losing power was the first true thing he's done in years. Maya sits in her apartment, laptop open, cursor blinking on the draft email she's rewritten 5 times. Her name is now mentioned in internal reports, her loyalty questioned. She's tired of fear. She types faster than she breathes, confessing everything. The orders, the documents, the silence she kept. She knows what it means. Career suicide. Still, she presses send before she can change her mind. The sound of the message leaving is almost peaceful, like a confession whispered into the night. She leans back, tears she didn't notice falling freely. Some truths can't stay buried. They claw their way out, even through trembling hands. Elena receives the forwarded email late that evening. Every sentence feels like a mirror, shattering in slow motion, each truth cutting clean through her composure. The screen's glow paints her face pale. The sound of the clock is unbearable. She doesn't curse or panic. She just sits still, letting the realization settle like dust after an explosion. Her empire wasn't destroyed by rivals or men, but by silence, fear, and the loyalty she built on borrowed trust. She stands, walks to the window, and opens it wide. Cold air rushes in. Somewhere below, a siren wails through the rain, distant but closing in. Richard finds Maya's email in his inbox the next morning, a blind copy, sent moments before she exposed it to the board. He reads it twice, then again, slower. For the first time, he sees Elena not as a thief of his title, but as someone trapped by the same hunger that once defined him. He prints the email, folds it carefully, and leaves it at the receptionist's desk with a single note. Don't destroy her. Learn from her. Then he walks out into the sun, the city strangely quiet, his steps steady. For both of them, this might be what grace looks like. Not forgiveness, but release. The press conference is quiet before it begins. Flashes waiting to erupt, microphones pointed like weapons. Elena steps up to the podium, heartbeats synced with the click of cameras. The statement in her hand trembles only once before she steadies it. She could lie, redirect, deny, but she doesn't. The truth, when spoken aloud, feels cleaner than silence. Her words are slow, deliberate. She takes responsibility, admits failure, and refuses to blame anyone else. The room hums with disbelief. The storm she's been outrunning finally catches her, but instead of fear, she feels something close to peace. When the lights flare, she doesn't flinch. The hardest kind of power, she realizes, is surrender. Richard watches the conference from his living room. Lydia sits beside him, eyes unmoving, fingers tracing the rim of her tea mug. The woman on screen doesn't look like the one who took his chair. She looks like someone learning how to fall without breaking. He feels a strange kinship, almost pride, though it tastes like regret. Lydia finally speaks, her voice brittle. Maybe you both just wanted to matter. He doesn't answer. Outside, sunlight cuts through the curtains, thin but warm, landing on the framed photo of their family. For the first time in months, he doesn't turn away. Maya arrives at the office to find her badge disabled, her desk cleared. No one meets her eyes. She expected this, but the sting still burns. As she leaves, she sees Elena in the hallway, being escorted by security, not hostile, just procedural. Their eyes meet for a heartbeat, and that's enough. No words, no apologies, just mutual understanding carved out of ruin. Outside, the rain has stopped. Maya exhales, realizing for the first time that honesty, however costly, feels lighter than fear. She walks into the morning with nothing but a trembling kind of relief. That evening, Michael waits outside Elena's building. He doesn't bring flowers or words rehearsed, or pity, just presence. She steps out, her coat too thin for the wind, exhaustion carved beneath her eyes. He opens the car door without a word. They drive without destination, the city unfolding like memory. Streetlights, bridges, old places where they once dreamed smaller dreams. Eventually, he stops near the river. They sit in silence, the same bar's neon sign flickering across the water. He finally says, "You did what no one else could." She answers softly, "And lost what no one else should." They don't look at each other, but both are closer to forgiveness than they've ever been. The next morning, the office replaces her nameplate. The halls move on. Elena walks through the lobby one last time, her footsteps steady. Her reflection caught briefly in the marble floor before vanishing beneath the revolving door. Outside, the city feels alive again. Not forgiving, just moving forward. She pauses on the steps, lifts her face to the cold sun, and breathes. The sound of traffic fills the silence she once ruled. Behind her, Richard's letter rests on the new CEO's desk, unread. Some stories end quietly. Not with collapse, but with the slow acceptance of their own ending. She smiles, not in triumph, but release. Elena wakes before dawn. The apartment smells of coffee and rain. For the first time in months, her phone stays dark. No alerts, no headlines. She sits on the floor beside the window, knees pulled close, listening to the quiet rhythm of the city waking. The loss has stopped aching. Now it simply exists. A scar she can touch without flinching. She thinks about the people who built her rise and fall. Richard, Maya, Michael. The strange truth is that they were never enemies. Just mirrors showing what she refused to see. The sky lightens to soft gold. She smiles faintly, small but real. The first sign that the world hasn't ended, only changed. Richard volunteers now at a community business program, the kind of place he once ignored. He listens to young entrepreneurs talk about dreams that sound impossible, and instead of correcting them, he lets them speak. There's humility in silence he's learning. Lydia waits for him each evening with soft questions and quieter smiles. Their house feels lighter, less haunted by success. When he locks up the classroom after the session, he looks at the empty chairs and realizes this is the first leadership that doesn't demand followers, only patience. The man who once ruled with fear now builds with listening. Maya interviews for a new job at a nonprofit. Her hands still shake when she speaks, but she doesn't hide it anymore. When they ask about the scandal, she tells the truth plainly. The fear, the silence, the choice to tell the truth anyway. The room stays still for a long second, then one of the interviewers nods. For the first time, she feels her voice land somewhere safe. Outside. The afternoon air smells of wet earth, and she laughs under her breath, surprised at the sound. Failure didn't end her. It freed her from pretending. The world keeps opening, one honest breath at a time. Elena meets Michael again, this time in daylight. They walk through the park, leaves damp from last night's rain. No suits, no silence. Just two people who survived themselves. They talk about ordinary things. Movies, dinner, the possibility of leaving the city for a while. There's no grand confession. Only the comfort of conversation that doesn't hurt. When he reaches for her hand, she lets him. It feels different now. Not rescue, not nostalgia, just choice. Around them, children shout. Dogs bark. The world carries on. For once, she feels small in the best way possible. Evening settles over the skyline. Elena stands on her balcony, the city lights flickering like quiet promises below. She thinks of Richard teaching, Maya rebuilding, Michael waiting beside her. The storm that once defined her life has passed, leaving clear air and a different kind of strength. Leadership was never about control. She understands now. It was about responsibility, for others, for herself, for truth. She raises her glass of wine toward the horizon in silent acknowledgement. The past doesn't vanish, but it softens, becoming story instead of scar. Somewhere, a new day is already forming. Elena visits the company one last time, not to reclaim anything, but to say goodbye. The lobby feels smaller, almost gentle now. She meets the new CEO, a young woman nervous, but bright-eyed. They talk briefly about transition plans, but mostly about beginnings. Elena listens more than she speaks. Her advice simple: lead without fear. When she leaves, the air outside smells of rain again, but softer. She realizes that endings and beginnings often share the same scent. The revolving doors close behind her, and she doesn't look back. Power, she thinks, was never the point. Dignity was. Richard speaks to a small group at the community center, young professionals, anxious and hopeful. His voice has changed. It's quieter, more human. He talks about mistakes, about how ambition can blind as easily as it can guide. There's no bitterness left, only the weight of lessons learned. Lydia watches from the back row, pride hidden in a soft smile. When he finishes, no one applauds right away. The silence feels full, respectful. He gathers his notes, looks out the window, and sees sunlight breaking through thin clouds. Maybe redemption doesn't arrive loudly. Maybe it just sits beside you when you've stopped running. Maya starts her new job. The office smells like fresh paint and possibility. She sets a small plant on her desk, a gift from her sister, and opens her first project file. There's no fanfare, no audience, just quiet purpose. Her new boss walks by, nods, and keeps moving. She exhales, feeling calm instead of terrified. The ghosts of the past still linger, but they don't scare her anymore. She types her first line of work with steady fingers. Outside, the city hums its endless song, and for once she feels part of it instead of beneath it. Elena and Michael host a small dinner at home, Friends fill the table with laughter and the clink of glasses. Nothing extravagant, just food, warmth, and noise that feels alive. She moves easily among them, her face softer now, unguarded. At one point, she catches Michael's gaze from across the table. There's no grand declaration, only a quiet exchange that says everything. After years of chasing approval, she's learned that belonging begins in moments like this, not in boardrooms or applause, but in shared silence between people who stay. The film closes with Elena walking alone along the river, where it all began. The skyline glows in reflection, calmer now, as if forgiving. She stops at the railing, looking down at the slow current, the same river that once mirrored her ambition, now carrying her peace. A gentle breeze lifts her hair. Somewhere behind her, Michael calls her name, and she turns, smiling. The camera lingers, capturing the stillness between them before fading into the rising dawn. What secret could break a family twice? None, she thinks. Only silence. And now, finally, she's learned to live without it.